Welcome back to Chapter 18. I hope you're enjoying the audio version of Pirates of Savannah. Please remember to check out lupoliink.com and see what other products I have there as well. Thanks for your support.
Chapter 18, Bloody Marsh and Gully Hole Creek. "You'll have to come with me back to Savannah," William commanded. "You came all this way up here to get me." "What's the problem, old friend?" Patrick asked. "I think your sister'll be in Savannah. An indentured servant named Garland just arrived. She is rumored to have mentioned your name and be searching for you. Did you not tell us you named the Indian's dog after your sister?" the kilted man asked. "I did send a letter a while back. Could it be really true that it found her?" "We have to find her. Who purchased her contract?" Patrick matched William's excitement. "I have not found that out yet," the Scot explained. "This is all rumor to me. I have not yet confirmed any of this tale. I thought you'd be wanting to know first." Later that night, Patrick called a meeting of the families and explained William's news. "I'm going back to a very dangerous situation. I have to go to my sister before she ends up in a life of horror. Being a female indentured is not much different than being a slave. I've heard the stories around town. Women indentures are routinely beaten and raped by their owners. I can't leave her to a life like that, especially since she came here looking for me. I don't want to leave you, but I have to know if it is her," Patrick finished. The families discussed the risks, but after some debate, they gave him their blessings. "I also asked the family's permission to go with Patrick, to keep him alive. He needs a counterpart with a rational mind, not just crazy Scottish warriors." Isaac shot William an eye. Marion spoke up. "You can go too, but I want you back in time when this child comes calling." "It's settled. We'll pack up and be ready to travel by first light. I need you to cut this beard and hair off so I look different. Will one of you ladies help me?" the indenture asked. Prudence pulled out her knife.
"I'll be happy to trim down that fucking rat's nest on your face. It's about time. What about you, Isaac? You want me to cut down that disgusting crumb catcher too?"
"No, Prudence. My religion forbids it," the Jewish man countered.
"Your religion sure does forbid a lot of shite. Do you do anything at all for fun? Is it always pray, pray, and pray? What the fuck does your God have against a clean face anyway? You do realize, Patrick, that even though you be changing your appearance, people are going to notice a gigantic hairy Jew traveling with you."
Prudence warned. "I'll dress him in a really large woman's cloak. He has the ankles to pull it off," Patrick smirked. Isaac's massive hand smacked Patrick on the back of the head, causing him to almost fall out of the chair while the families laughed. "Well, get cutting then," Patrick barked as Heather and Mariana laughed. William, Patrick, and Isaac all left in the morning and made fast time to the little fishing sloop. The ship avoided the dock and the dock master completely this time and had a small rowboat waiting for them on shore. The men loaded their things and were ferried out to the waiting Scottish-owned sloop. "Where to, William?" the captain asked. "I think it's about time we call in our favor, lads. Go to the little Yamacraw village above Savannah. Get us as close as you can." The men had a blessing of good luck and made it to the little village without incident. Patrick held up the belt made of beads that the rescued Indians gave him at Fort Mose. When he held it aloft, the belt was recognized as a sign of peace. Normally, white men would have been killed by mistakenly wandering into an Indian village. Travelers would not know the subtle Creek protocol and unknowingly offend or threaten the tribe. Even with the belt, the three men approached cautiously and slow. Hooting and shouts shot across the camp, signaling alarm. The men were quickly surrounded by Indian warriors, who inspected them closely. "Do any of you speak the king's tongue?" Isaac inquired. One of the warriors nodded, and held his hand out, to which Patrick surrendered the family belt to the painted man. The Indian looked it over and read the little bead pictures woven into the belt. "Stay," the warrior commanded with his open palm. He then ran off into the woods. The three travelers found themselves under guard with nothing to do but wait. While they waited, the men stared at the interesting sights in the village. The village was impressive but primitive. Nothing was permanent and looked as if it could be folded up and moved in a matter of minutes. Although the camp seemed temporary, it was expansive. It hinted that the tribe had finally stopped moving so much and set up a more elaborate camp with massive fire pits and totem poles. "Fuck all this standing around, lads. I'm sitting on me arse," William announced as he sat. Patrick and Isaac looked at each other and shrugged their shoulders and sat down too. The Scot produced a fist-sized deerskin pouch filled with hemp. He offered it to the closest warrior guarding him. The painted man looked surprised and slowly opened it. The Indian quickly smiled and beckoned to his Hokte to bring him a pipe. The feathered woman soon returned with a large ornate pipe and a small torch. The happy Yamacraw packed the pipe and lit the slow-burning hemp with the small torch. The warrior held the smoke in his lungs for what seemed like an eternity, and then blew a puff of blue smoke out slowly. He then passed the pipe to William, and he drew deep, trying to match the warrior's time. As the kilted man blew the smoke out, he passed it to the guard standing next to him, who, in turn, smiled and sat down. After only a few minutes, a large group of Indians were sitting with the three outsiders smoking. An old Indian passed the decorative pipe to Patrick, who overeagerly inhaled.
Oh, God!
The scarred-faced man quickly choked and coughed on the smoke. The group enjoyed a hearty laugh at his expense, relaxing the tense situation. By the time the original warrior returned with the belt, nobody in the group had noticed. The entire pouch was empty, and the guards were laughing loudly as they practiced their broken English on the prisoners. The man with the belt now was escorted by three familiar-looking redskins. "Me called Solatiki. You whiteskins set us free. How we can help?" It seemed everyone loved smoke except Patrick. He was green and queasy and had a headache, so Isaac spoke for him. "We need your expert tracking skills to find someone. An indentured servant named Garland came from England last month and now is in Savannah. We need you to find her and bring her back to us." "What's she look like?" the warrior inquired. "No idea now. She used to have bright blonde yellow hair, like straw," Patrick squeaked out. "You stay here. We find straw hair," Solatiki commanded. He then, in turn, spoke to his guards and explained the situation. The three warriors quickly departed in the direction of Savannah as Solatiki tied the reunited family belt back around his waist. "Your redskins know Ligo Chi. He be one dangerous old man," William asked. The group of smoke-happy warriors did not understand the Scotsman brogue, or just ignored him. The red men were busy ordering their women to feed their guest. The Hokteke went over to the large bubbling cauldron that was always ready. The idea of set meal times was a silly notion to the Yamacraw. Within minutes, the three travelers were enjoying some peaches and deer stew. The buzzing of a large black puff of flies woke Patrick, who was sleeping on the ground. The other two men were already awake, sitting in the dirt, trying to gather their bearings. "Good Lord, do those Injuns sure know how to smoke? I had not seen smoke and grub consumed like that since a Scottish funeral," William chuckled. "Wake me when those warriors return with my sister. I'm going back to sleep over there in the shade," Patrick stated as he stumbled to a spot under an oak with Spanish moss hanging from its branches. "For the Lord's sake, don't let that hanging moss touch you. It be loaded with little red bitey things," William warned. Patrick quickly passed out in the shade while the other men went to make water. He was woken up by someone shaking his shoulder. "Sisters sold to group of white soldiers."
War break out again. Spanish get revenge and plan to take Savannah from British.
The Indian informed him.
50 Spanish ships seen near Fort Simons. Oglethorpe calling back Creek to fight again. Your straw-haired sister with redcoat soldiers traveling to St. Simons. We take you to St. Simons, rescue sister from white soldiers.
You will be traveling with known men. If the British catch you helping us, they'll kill us all. This could be very dangerous for you, my new friend, Patrick explained to the Indian.
We honor life debt to you. We save sister, you forgive debt?
The Indian asked. Absolutely. We will be on the level, Redskin, Patrick guaranteed. I really do not want to go back into that mosquito and gator-infested death swamp. But I really want to find my sister, Patrick explained. Isaac, William, I do not expect you to go traipsing through such a dangerous place just to help me with my debt I owe my sister.
We are all family now, even if our blood is different. Your sister is our sister. Of course we're coming, you fool.
Isaac smiled. Patrick stumbled to his feet and hugged the men. Oh, God, I feel awful. Don't hug too hard or I'll unload my guts all over your boots, the Green Man warned.
Can you trust these redskins not to sell us to the British for silver?
Isaac queried. Honor is extremely important to them in their culture. If this Indian not be honoring his word, his tribe will forsake him and his family. His honor is much more important to him than some silver, lads, William responded. The white men rested and cleaned their muskets, while a large group of Yamacraw warriors were preparing to go fight the white man's war again. Solatiki rode up with 3 war horses wearing English saddles. The Appaloosas were painted with yellow and black handprints. A feeling of panic ran up Patrick's woozy spine. He had never been on a horse before. Although horses were everywhere in Savannah, Archibald preferred to walk or travel by carriage. The deceased man had been thrown off the back of a gelding and slammed into a fence when he was younger, and he had never forgiven the beast. Isaac and William mounted the steeds with ease, and the group watched and waited for Patrick to mount. Patrick took a deep breath and placed his foot on the stirrup. He awkwardly grabbed the saddle and pulled. Appaloosa picked up on the man's unsteadiness and lurched forward. One foot followed the stirrup and the other held fast on the ground. The steed quickly ripped Patrick off his foot and dragged him away from the camp. Solatiki chased down the horse, laughing. The equine steadied and the white men helped a scraped and bruised Patrick up into his saddle.
Just relax. Don't yank the steed's bit. They hate that. Bend your knees and lean back a little,
Isaac advised. Patrick clumsily steered his painted beast into the line of horses and held his reins in terror. Relax, lad. The beast knows if you'll be frightened and he'll test you. Just stay between us and we'll help you get the hang of it, William chimed in. How do you stop this damn thing? Patrick yelled as his horse picked up its pace to match the herd.
Don't worry, Patrick. We'll teach you on the journey,
Isaac laughed. The 3 rescuers rode out and somehow kept pace with the fast-moving warriors. The 3 white men followed the painted men for days deep into the swamps. They veered their path away from Savannah and steered clear of any British inhabitants. The warriors scouted ahead and kept the white men invisible for the entire journey. It was July 17th, 1742, when Solatiki came back to the men with news. Patrick discovered through the scout that the Spanish had already seized St. Simons weeks ago and were occupying the fort. A small one-carriage road named Military Road ran between Fort St. Simon and Fort Frederica through the dense woods.
We find Strawhair. She cooked for Chief Oglethorpe's soldiers at camp half day from here. Tomorrow we go together and take her,
the Indian announced. The rest of his tribemen had gone to help the British repel the Spanish, so Solatiki was able to pass through the English lines without suspicion.
Huzzah! Let us finish this and get the hell out of this damn swamp,
Isaac exclaimed. Let us enjoy one more lovely night of being dinner for hungry bugs. We must not rush in blindly. Patrick countered, paying homage to Archibald by flattering the Indian. We'll make a plan tonight. Great warrior, report what you have seen with your hawk eyes. The scout's mood brightened, and he smiled. He sat down and constructed a crude model of the camp with sticks and stones. William pulled out more hemp and sat down for a smoke as they hatched a plan. Let us get a good night's rest before we move. My arse is red from all this riding, Patrick complained. The men took turns at watch while the others slept. When morning rose, one of Solatiki's scouts quickly rode into camp. He reported to the Indian guide for 10 minutes. Patrick had no clue what they were talking about, but he could tell from the scout's frantic pointing something big was happening. Solatiki approached the white men.
We know much more now about Spanish. 50 ships sailed through St. Simon's cannon fire. 2,000 Spanish landed near Gascogany Bluff on Frederica River and take fort. Oh, that is not comforting. I think if we add up all the soldiers, militia, Indians, and Oglethorpe's forces, they're only numbering around 700 souls. He won't be able to hold this position much longer. We really need to find your sister and leave this place quickly,
Isaac injected. The warrior continued.
Spanish start moving down road. We ride now. Must find Straw Hair before Spanish kill all the English.
I am ready. Let us ride. To hell with this swamp, Patrick shouted. The men broke camp and rode out, kicking up mud behind them. Within hours, the 4 men arrived at the British campsite. The white men waited and let the Indian coax Garland away from the camp. The Yamacraw ran into the camp and disappeared. After about an hour, Solatiki returned carrying a bloody Indian. His tribesman was popped up. The scout propped up the bloody warrior as he spoke.
Soldiers move her to camp outside Fort Frederica. We must go closer to battle. Follow.
The men mounted up and nervously moved closer to the fort as the sun set. Along the little wagon trail called Military Road, they came across a wounded soldier stumbling back. William stopped and offered the injured man some water. "Sergeant, what be the news?" he asked. The sergeant went into great detail about the invasion as he drank. The injured man explained that Noble James bested the Spanish general Montillano's troops up on Military Road in those bloody marshes. More Spanish troops descended the little road before retaliating their loss. All day long, British troops were driven down the road, fighting little skirmishes until a full retreat was called. The soldier smiled through his bloody lips and continued. When we reached the bend in the road at Gully Hole Creek, Lieutenant Sutherland and McCoy decided to stop. Their soldiers and Oglethorpe's Indian allies hid in the thick of the forest. They waited and watched as the Spanish broke rank. They continued to spy, seeing them stack arms and taking out their kettles and preparing to cook dinner. They had assumed we retreated for good, but we had a surprise waiting. Our forces flew from the forest and attacked the Spanish men off guard, killing about 50 dead. Truly, I only have minor injuries and I am on my way carrying news of the victory back to the fort. If you can ride, we can take you to Fort Frederica to share the news of your victory, William offered the man. That'd be dandy, the injured man said as he accepted the offer. Patrick and Isaac shot William a confused look. William nodded to the worried men, assuring them to relax. 4 horses and 6 riders approached the gate to a group of waiting guards. The injured sergeant yelled in delight, "Victory today at Gully Hole Creek!" The guards cheered and simply waved the party into the fort without question. "Well, get right in here, Sergeant. We need to find a wench to do mending for us. Where be your soldiers' wenches?" William questioned slyly. "Thanks for the lift. You'll find all the women in the medical tents right now. Long live the king," the sergeant yelled as he limped over to join his comrades. Patrick looked across the courtyard and spotted a flash of bright blonde hair outside a tent sewing clothes. He galloped over to confirm if he was indeed looking at his long-lost sister. When he arrived, he just stared at her visage. Her hair was lighter than he remembered, but she was now a grown woman. Her eyes were the right shade of green, but she looked so different than he remembered. Then he noticed a small scar that was drawn across her eyebrow from a childhood fall Patrick remembered. Garland? Is that you? Patrick squeaked out.
Piss off! I ain't got no time for washing any of your clothes, and I ain't selling my body,
she barked back. Patrick laughed. Garland, it's me, your brother, Patrick. She dropped her needle and looked up slowly. She gave his scarred face a long look.
Is that you? Oh, God, you found me!
She yelled for joy. She pulled Patrick down from his horse and hugged him so hard it left him gasping for air. I have missed you so, sister. But we have no time to lose. You have to leave with us now. We are known men, and right now we are pilgrims in a very unholy land, Patrick whispered.
God, yes. Get me out of here. But I have one thing I have to do first. I will make haste,
Garland promised. She disappeared into the medical tent. After a minute, she appeared with a teapot and ran it over to a large soldier's tent. Patrick watched as she switched the teapot and left it hanging over a small fire. She then disappeared into the large tent. After a couple minutes, she returned holding a bag and wearing a cloak that covered her face and body. Patrick helped her onto the back of his horse and stated, "Let us leave this murderous hole and never come back." The group started to ride out of the gates when a guard commanded them to stop. "What be your business leaving at nightfall?" Nobody in the group could think of a proper response until Garland's voice spoke up.
These men are ordered to escort me to see one of my boys.
The guard shook his head in disgust. "Carry on."
Tell them I'll be back very late, and I left their favorite tea brewing on the fire,
she yelled at the guard. The group casually cantered down Military Road until they were out of sight. They then broke off into the dense woods to avoid troops who were on their way back to the fort. Even though Solatiki was still riding double with his injured comrade, he made quick time guiding the group back into the swamp. They rode all night and wanted to stop, but Garland begged the group to put as much distance as possible between Fort Frederica and them. Finally, mid-afternoon, they had to stop for the sake of the exhausted horses and to get some sleep for themselves. The white men made a fire and relaxed while the Indians rotated watch. Patrick finally got a chance to sit down and catch up with Garland. "I sure did miss you, little sister." He reached out to hug her. As soon as he was in striking range, the back of her hand fell across his scarred-up jaw. The blow knocked Patrick over.
That's for leaving me alone all those years,
she screamed. She then kicked him in the shin, crying,
and that's for not being in Savannah when I landed.
"Garland, darling, I had no choice. I never wanted to leave you. That is why I sent a letter to you the first chance I got, asking you to come join me," Patrick pleaded.
A messenger tracked me down in London. He said he'd almost given up, but he ran across someone from my church that knew where I was.
"Why didn't Mother and our sisters join you? Are they on their way to join us?" Patrick hoped.
Oh, you do not know, do you, brother? Mom passed away shortly after you left of blood-lung fever. She must have gotten it from taking care of Papa. Our sisters both died from the pox a few months later. I am sorry, Patrick. I'm the only family you have left.
Patrick grew silent and sad as his sister continued.
Frankly, I thought you were dead. I tried to find you in prison, but they kept poor records. I was told you must be dead if you were incarcerated that long. That is why I never came to visit you.
She sensed his grief, held him as he wept, and promised,
Your family never gave up on you. They were just taken by the Lord.
Patrick had already assumed the worst about his family in London. Somewhere down deep, he knew they were dead. He was prepared for the grief, and the feelings were now overtaking him. The sting was not as traumatic as it could have been. Sadly, he had forgotten what his mom and sisters even looked like, because it now seemed like a past life. Patrick wiped his tears. "So, sister, what was so damn important that you had to stop and make tea for the soldiers before you left?" She reached over and held his hand.
Brother, a group of 6 soldiers purchased me. I was told I would only have to clean, cook, and mend for them. I quickly found out they were horrible, evil souls. When the tent flaps closed, they took turns forcing themselves on me over and over, and they even sold me to their fellow soldiers for extra rations."
Patrick filled with rage. "We'll have to go back and kill these men tonight." She held him down.
Brother, they will meet the Reaper tonight. I have already extracted my vengeance. The 6 men have a tradition of drinking hot tea together before they sleep. When I was working in the medical tent, I found some devil's porridge and infused it in their tea.
Patrick repeated in confusion, "Devil's porridge?" His sister replied,
You know, beaver poison, herb bennet, musquash root, poison parsley, spotted coriban. I think they call it spotted hemlock over here.
Patrick calmed down. "Those rapist scum are going to have a hard time catching their breath when they sleep tonight, and the Grim Reaper will come for their souls by the morrow."
Yes, they have a toasting ritual every night. They salute King George, and then they all drink at the same time. If they had a good victory today, they will definitely all be drinking it down together tonight.
She grinned evilly. Patrick had an epiphany. "So that is why you wanted to push the horses and ride as fast as you can. The camp will cry treachery in the morning when the corpses are discovered." She nodded. Patrick yelled, "Listen up, lads. I need to tell you there will be danger behind us. We need to ride hard at daybreak to William's house."